Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for all of your attention to detail and for your commentary here today. As my colleague just mentioned, he used the phrase celebration. I'm going to use a slightly different one: gratitude. I am grateful that we have these projected one-time additional surplus funds. But I'm also extremely cognizant of the healthy dose of realism that was delivered to us last week by the governor, not just with respect to the Consolidated Transportation Plan, but in his overall remarks. For those of us who were at the MACO conference on Thursday night, I got the message loud and clear that this is time for pragmatism and caution, and really being incredibly thoughtful about what we are doing moving forward in terms of our overall fiscal landscape. And it was a very sobering conversation. And I know that we have had a tone of let's not spend one-time funds for ongoing expenses, which is incredibly important. And also, I think I said several times during last budget season that we need to not have things marked as a one-time expense in the operating budget that have been there for years, because those are not one-time expenses if they keep showing up year after year. Some of them during committee sessions were explained to have been in the budget for 4 years. So I hope we don't find ourselves in that situation during this year's operating budget. And I don't know that the real estate market's going to yield any great changes for us on recordation tax either. We have a confluence of things happening. We have low inventory, we have high mortgage rates, and we do have our recordation tax that we increased last year. Those are 3 factors that go into the overall affordability of being able to buy a house in Montgomery County. So we have less real estate transactions happening, and that will continue to hurt us in terms of what we projected to be able to use in the CIP that we will not have. And so for me, I'm looking at this as, this would be a good time to prioritize what we have in a surplus to use for the CIP, because those really are truly one-time expenses. That is the area of need where we're feeling strain from the lower than estimated recordation tax pressure. And also in terms of our residents and their thoughts, I think there's definitely, everybody appreciated during COVID, things got a little strange, right? But we know that delaying construction projects costs us more in the long run. So if we have the ability to take one-time funds to use towards the CIP, that seems like a very fiscally prudent and responsible thing to do so that we can keep the things in our CIP on track. And I'd love to hear feedback from all of you about what I just unpacked.
Well, I would have to agree with you. One-time nature of our budgeting process is certainly the capital budget, where we build an asset and we put those assets on our books. And as I said earlier, we are OMB is in an advisory role with the county executive, and we are having some conversations on what the upcoming CIP will look like on January 15th, especially since some of these revenue factors will impact what we are able to do and carry forward and do in the future as far as capital projects is concerned. So we will see where he lands, and hopefully we will all be in a good place once the recommendations come out in January.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, do you have any comments?
Just to say that would certainly be a wonderful use of one-time revenues, because as you mentioned, it is one-time expenditures, and would certainly the council and the executive can determine how best to prioritize those dollars to meet the needs in the capital budget. Also want to note that any surplus kind of above and beyond the 10% reserve also serves as a buffer for a recession that might end up being worse than anticipated.
Right.
So it's important to remember that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President.